This is reality. Hear that?
Reality, the book, this story, safety, sanity?
You hear me? I'm not insane!
All of it is in question, but there must be truth here somewhere. After all, you're here for a reason, and I'm here with a purpose.
Cane's writing has been known to have an effect on his less stable readers.
So many of you thought it was a joke, but I've got it. I've read it.
This one will drive you absolutely mad.
All I can do now is try to warn you, try to keep you from answering the question.
Do you read Sutter Cane?
Otherwise, you may also end up trapped in the mouth of madness. This is only the beginning. All of it will make sense by the end, but...
This is not the ending. You haven't read it yet.
An ambulance speeds its way to the asylum for the criminally insane, where Dr. Saperstein and a few other staff members are awaiting the arrival of Mr. John Trent, who has already been restrained and put into a straitjacket, but still puts up a fight against two of the large guards that have been given the unfortunate job of bringing him in. After a lucky kick to one of the guards and a brief struggle, they throw John into padded room number 9, his new home, where he immediately begins pleading with them to just let him out and let him explain.
You hear me? I'm not insane!
His yelling starts a chain reaction of all the other patients also claiming that they're not insane. These cries reach Dr. Saperstein, who is currently reading his newest patient's file. But as though he has already been through all of this many times, he just takes a breath and turns on some music to calm everyone down. A song that the others seem to love and even sing along with, but that would absolutely drive me more insane than what I already am. Because the only time that I ever hear it is right before something crazy is fixing to happen. Then you already know it, because we've only just begun. Just make it stop. If they keep playing this song, I'm no longer going to just work here, I will be a patient here. If only Saperstein would allow us to use our sponsor's offer to get 30% off of the Essential Open Earbuds from Raycon, we could all have our own music and still be aware of what's going on around us. I keep trying to get him to take advantage of this deal since these would be perfect for the job. They're lightweight, comfortable, and with a 36-hour battery life, we would all be set for the entire shift, but he just keeps asking me if I read Sutter Cane. I would if I could listen to one of his audiobooks while at work instead of this maddening song. I just can't wait to get home and use my Essential Open earbuds, and just because Saperstein's going to miss out on this deal doesn't mean that you have to. Just click the link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/poltergibstopen to get 30% off of your very own Essential Open earbuds today. That's buyraycon.com/poltergibstopen so you can help support the channel and hopefully don't end up insane like everyone else here. Maybe.
Not the Carpenters, too.
Sliding down his padded wall in utter defeat, John should have known that this song was playing for a reason. As the song quickly dies out, the lights flicker and someone knocks on the glass to his cell. Standing to his feet, he tries to see who could be outside. Looking all around, still finding no one, John should have known that the one he was searching for has always been behind him. Turning to face this faceless shadow, John cries out, saying that this is a terrible way to end it.
This is not the ending. You haven't read it yet.
As we then get a flash of John's past, present, and future, just before it's all interrupted by a hand crashing through the glass and sending John to the floor. And when he looks up from his mattress, everything is back to normal. Only a few hours after John Trent's arrival, someone else has already made their way there to speak with him. Dr. Wren and the group that he works with have been monitoring all of the police and paramedic radio channels in the area and believe that John Trent might be one of them. With how crazy everything is getting, he is here to find out what led John to committing the crimes that he did. But just before Saperstein opens the door for Wren, Wren asks if John has made any request. Only one. A single black crayon. And he's put it to good use, not just all over the padding of the walls, but all over himself. Definitely fitting the picture of someone that would belong in a room like this. But Dr. Wren believes that that's the point. That all of this might just be for show. So without wasting any time, he tells John that he is there to help him to get out. Only John now claims that he doesn't want to leave.
I changed my mind.
Wren is very forward with John, cutting right through this facade that he's trying to put up. And John can tell right away that there won't be any reason for him to lie. The truth of his experiences will all but guarantee that he never leaves this room. Asking for a smoke and stating that things must be getting bad out there, John then sits and begins his story. Back when he was still just a normal freelance insurance investigator and was hired by a firm to look into a strange disappearance.
The Sutter Cane disappearance.
We then go back before everything and everyone had gone completely insane to an investigation that John is investigating to show us just how good at investigating as an investigator that he really is. As he slowly pulls the truth out of Mr. Paul here, whose warehouse burned down, but the insurance company believes that maybe, just maybe, Mr. Paul is the culprit behind it burning down. All it took was for John to follow Mr. Paul and his wife around for a few days to see her wearing some of the items that he claimed had burned in the fire. But not only did he see Paul's wife wearing some of these items, but also his mistress. Paul's wife had a lot to say when she learned about Miss Rosa Palmenteri. After this very productive meeting with Mr. Paul, John and Robinson go to a diner to talk more about what just happened and what more could happen if they work together full-time, as Robinson then offers him a full-time position there at the firm, but John declines, claiming that he is his own man and no one pulls his strings, he is independent and he is happy. All while this is going on, we can see a crazed man walking out of the bookstore across the street with an axe in hand, headed straight for Mr. John Trent. Only him and Robinson are too busy looking at the newest claim from Robinson's biggest client, a publisher named Arcane. Their problem is that their biggest writer has gone missing along with his newest book, a book that we have already seen advertised in the background in the short amount of time that they have been sitting here in this diner. In the Mouth of Madness by Sutter Cane, and for John, the name doesn't even ring a bell, but for the man standing outside the window with an axe, it's as if the mention of the name sends him into action. Cleaving through the window, shattering it and scattering the occupants within the diner, he then steps up onto the table that John is still sitting at in utter horror and confusion as he then crouches down in front of John, looks him straight into his eyes, and asks him,
"Do you read Sutter Cane?"
The axe-wielding maniac's blue pupils begin to split into two as he then stands, hoists the axe above his head, and is shot by the cops, saving John just in time, or at least allowing him to live another day. Because this question will continue to haunt him from here until the end of his existence. Later that evening at John's home, the news reports give us much more info about how Sutter Cane's fans are taking his disappearance. People are absolutely losing it because none of the bookstores have the books that they had already pre-ordered. There are full-on riots going on all throughout the city and most likely all across the country. It's all of this that leads John to Arcane's headquarters the next day to meet with the boss, Charlton Heston. Wait, no, Jackson Harglow. Everyone is sent out of the room. Everyone is sent out of the room, leaving John, Mr. Harglow, and Linda Stiles, who is one of their head editors that exclusively works on Cane's books. Linda and John have already started off on the wrong foot, with Linda's first question to him being if he even reads books at all, and then John shortly after calling Cane's works crap. And this is how we find out that Cane is not just a big deal, he is the biggest deal, selling more works than Stephen King and being the most widely read author of the century. But he disappeared 2 months ago and hasn't had any contact with anyone. That is until 2 weeks ago when his agent received an unmarked package from Cane that had a few of the chapters of the newest book.
What'd the agent have to say?
You heard what he had to say.
What he had to say, or better yet, what he had to ask was, "Do you read Sutter Cane?" The maniac with the axe that had nearly killed John the day before was Cane's agent. Even with how shocking this news is to John, he still chooses to laugh it off and just make a joke about Cane, despite being so popular, can't seem to find better representation. The joke doesn't go over well with anyone else, but John then explains his suspicions to Linda as they make their way to the elevator. Because in his line of work, he has seen many crazy things, and something like this would make for a really good way to get more publicity for Cane's latest book. After all, the film rights have already been sold. It is set to print in over 18 different languages, and Cane as a whole is a billion-dollar franchise. So it may not be as big of a stretch to think that some extremes have been taken to keep this momentum up during Cane's disappearance. But Linda tries her hardest to assure him that that isn't what is or has happened.
Cane's writing has been known to have an effect on his less stable readers.
Effects like disorientation, memory loss, and severe paranoia, along with others, but John cuts her off, just telling her that all of that should just be listed in the press kit. Linda doesn't snap back at him though, only telling him that they need his help. They need him to do what he does best and to do what he can to find Sutter Cane, because they really don't even know that much about him. Everything that they ever did was always done with the agent and not Sutter Cane directly. All she knows is that in the last year he started writing differently, as though he was beginning to believe that he was no longer writing fiction, but that all of it was real. And then they stopped receiving anything from him, and Linda's only suggestion for where John needs to start is with Cane's old books, because maybe then he might be able to understand Cane a little better, but not just Cane, his fans too, because so many of them have seemed to completely have lost their minds here lately. With Cane's influence being as great as what it is, you never really know where you might run into one of his fans or where some of his fans have been. Because even on his way home that night, John passes posters of Cane's latest book, The Hobs End Horror, in this random alleyway. While this is odd to him, it's the sounds of someone being beaten around the corner that draws his attention, where he finds a whole group of homeless people standing around watching a cop beat one of them for graffitiing the beginning of a phrase that we will hear very soon, but not right now. Because John doesn't want anything to do with whatever craziness is going on here.
You want some too, buddy?
It isn't a question of what he wants, but of what he needs in order to figure out how this whole scam works. And like Linda suggested, the best place for him to start doing this is by getting his hands on some of Cane's old works, which he's able to do because all of Cane's fans have already read all of his old books and made sure to leave them on the shelf during their last riot. It's the news playing in the background reporting on these riots that has John looking embarrassed to even pick up Cane's books. So many reports of violence are now coming in from many different eastern cities, all of them having the same strange connection back to Sutter Cane and his latest novel, The Hobs End Horror, with Cane's 5 other books likely also playing a role in all of this madness. Those being The Whisper of the Dark, The Thing in the Basement, The Feeding, The Breathing Tunnel, and The Haunter Out of Time. All books that John is trying his hardest to grab without being seen, but it's already too late.
I can see. He sees you.
John just tells this stranger to tell whoever can see him that he says hi, and then makes his way home to begin reading. And to his surprise, they are far better written than he expected, and he's not sure what it is about them, but they do start to get to you over time, and far more than what he would ever admit to anyone or even to himself. Back at the posters in the alley, John again hears the sounds of someone being beaten around the corner. Only this time when he steps closer, he finds that the phrase has now been completed. I can see, and it is just the graffitier and the cop this time. It's seeing the altered face of the policeman as he turns to look at John that causes him to wake up. John just seemed to doze off for a moment while he was reading, and this odd memory dream thing doesn't stop him from continuing on. In the alley again, John watches in horror as the graffitier is being beat, but it is the axe-wielding maniacs that are sneaking up behind him that he should be focused on. But he doesn't see them until it's too late, and as he turns to leave, just as he's done the last 2 times, he sees that the alley is full of them, all being led by the same maniac that John watched die in front of him, Cane's agent. Stumbling backwards, the cop calls out to him again, asking him if he wants some too. Trapped as he is, John turns around to see the agent as he repeats the phrase that the stranger said in the bookstore earlier. He sees you, he sees you, he sees you, while all the rest of them circle around the agent and cut him down, causing John to start walking backwards away from the insanity before him and right into the policeman. It was all just another dream, and honestly, it does make a lot of sense that John is now having these kind of nightmares. Between all of the stuff going on with Sutter Cane, the riots, the strange guy at the bookstore, the beating happening in the alleyway, and of course, almost taking an axe to the face just before watching someone get gunned down right in front of him. A lot has happened, but as we know, it's only just begun. Between being smeared in ink, a lot of cigarettes, and many more hours, he does notice something odd about the book covers. Cane had every one of them custom made, each with their own unique red outline that when assembled together forms the shape of New Hampshire, with a red dot right in the middle where the very real yet forgotten Hobs End resides. The next question being, is this where Sutter Cane disappeared to? And the only way to answer it is by going to find him.
Was it what?
Get awake.
In the best interest of both Arcane and the insurance company that John is working for, Linda was sent along for the search. And if John keeps this up, she will definitely be the first to lose her mind. Though from the conversation they have that night, she might already be a lot closer than what she would admit. As she explains to John, the reason that Cane's books scare her is because of what could happen if reality shared Cane's point of view. According to her, reality is just what we tell each other that it is. What we consider insane right now could become sane if enough people believed that the insane was sane, and vice versa. John just thinks that this entire conversation is insane and completely disagrees, telling her that even if everyone else believed that the insane was sane, that he wouldn't. Linda lets the conversation end with one final statement about him ending up in a padded room for being sane, but in the end ultimately changing his mind and giving in because everything that he ever knew no longer exists.
I'd be pretty lonely being the last one left.
But at least for now, they are together, even if they are and have been lost for hours. Which is why it's also nice that they are together, because that means they can switch off when driving, even though it means that Linda is now going to experience things that she will be completely unable to explain. Starting with passing a teen riding on a bike in the middle of the road off into the darkness, and then passing that same bike, now having the teen aged at least 80 years. Her confused ramblings cause John to stir a little bit, but he doesn't fully wake up until... Slamming on the brakes and hopping out, they run over to the old man's side, with John yelling for Linda not to move him, but it is what the old man is saying that Linda hears clearest. I can't get out. He won't let me. Slowly standing to her feet, she looks up at an old windmill just off the side of the road, the blades of it no longer being the only thing that is spinning. Linda doesn't look okay, but the old man seems to be doing much better as he passes behind her and rides off into the darkness, which is exactly where Linda and John drive through when they get back onto the road. Not just any darkness, but a complete and utter void. With the flash of lightning and strange lights flying past, they then enter a tunnel and come out the other side the next morning in Hobs End, which appears to be completely abandoned with no one in sight. Well, except for a bunch of kids chasing a dog. Or maybe not, as John didn't see them and they're now nowhere to be found. But maybe John and Linda are just missing them the same way that they are missing the bloody axe that's just down the road behind them, as they then leave downtown Hobs End to head to
A hotel from Hobs End. All right.
That's what I was gonna say. Even though neither of them have ever been here before, Linda begins calling out all of the details of the hotel just as they were written in the book. From the painting on the wall in the lobby to a loose floorboard, but not everything here is the exact same. Because outside, the greenhouse is empty, which may or may not be for the best, and the painting here in the lobby keeps changing right in front of Linda's eyes.
We are not living inside a Sutter Cane story.
That would be crazy, just like what Mrs. Pigman is supposed to be. There's no way that this kind old lady that just gave them their keys would ever be the kind to chop up her husband. All of that is just a story written by Sutter Cane. All of this is reality, and besides, even if this was a Sutter Cane story, that would mean that there is a black Byzantine church just outside the window, but all that there is an old barn. As confident as John is, he should know better than to challenge the one who edited the book that they are arguing over. Linda corrects him. He didn't read closely enough, because the church wouldn't be seen out of the west window, it would be seen out of the east. An old church with an odd history, or at least that's what Cane claims in his writings. And with how everything is lined up between his book and the town of Hobs End so far, it's almost as if the book is both the true history of the town and a guidebook for where they might be able to find him. Though with the mention of an evil older than mankind, pain and suffering beyond human comprehension, a murderous race of creatures whose very existence contaminated time itself, the creepy kid still chasing the dog in the background, and the depictions of the Archangel Michael casting out these beings from heaven will all give them a lot more to think about than just where to find Cane.
We'll have somebody to ask in about 2 seconds.
The townsfolk aren't here to answer questions. They are here to get their children back from Cane. With just enough time to get out of the way, John stops to see what is happening, with Linda the whole time pleading with him to leave before they get hurt. Because a man named Simon is leading the charge with a double-barrel shotgun in hand, screaming at the top of his lungs for Cane to give him his son back. As we are then finally able to read the signs on the front of this church. Let these doors be sealed by our Lord God, and let any who dare enter this unholy site be damned forever. Gaining us a better understanding of what John was reading just moments before. That this building was built as a way to swallow up and seal away the ancient evils here. Though the very building itself now being considered evil due to what lies inside, and sadly, what is now inside is Simon's son Johnny. But instead of running out to his father, he stays right where he's at. As the doors begin to open and close in this mocking gesture, as though the church itself is laughing at all of the parents that have come here to get their children back.
Is that Cane?
It is, and he isn't alone, as a pack of Dobermans run around from the side of the building and begin attacking all of the people of Hobs End. Most, though, are at least able to get away, including Linda and John, who are able to make it all the way back to the room unscathed and then immediately begin to have a heated argument. Because John is good at his job and he knows a hoax when he sees one. He believes that all of this is just one big setup and another publicity stunt for Arcane, all in the hope that when John makes it back that he will go and blab to all of these reporters about what is going on with Sutter Cane, and then they will be able to sell that many more copies. He swears that he is going to get the truth out of someone here in this town so he can finally finish this job and dismiss their claim as the fraud that it is. He's right. Well, he's half right. Because Arcane did set up for Cane to disappear for a little while, but he never showed up. Even now, Harglow's plan was for her to just go with him to make it all look legit, but they were not supposed to find anything, and they did.
We didn't stage any of this. It's all happening for real, Trent.
And it all takes place within the book. That's how she knows. John, though, also read all of the books, and he knows that what they just witnessed didn't happen in any of them. That's because he hasn't read the new one. Only Cane's agent and Linda have read the first few chapters of it. Even from only knowing the beginning of the book, she knows that it is all about the end, and the end starts with the children here in this town. Linda believes that the only way that they can make any sort of change is by finding the book and reading the ending. Then they will be able to find the way out. John thinks that she's just losing it, and it isn't much help when she starts trying to kiss him or when she tries hiding the keys when he makes his way out of the room to head downstairs. And downstairs isn't much better. The painting has changed again, Mrs. Pigman is acting super strange, and Linda is just sneaking off behind him to steal the car and drive off. It's as John chases after her that we get to see a little bit of the real Mrs. Pigman and her husband.
Hush.
Without a car and fewer options available, John makes his way to the local bar in town. It's empty, of course, but the lack of people might be part of the reason that he really does believe that all of this is one big hoax. As per his notes, an expensive hoax, but with fewer people that they need to pay off to make it all work. Simon enters the bar and tries to dispel this whole idea right away, telling John that he needs to take the hint and leave, then revealing that Cane has messed with something up there at the church and it is now leaking out. First getting a hold of all of the children, and now all of them. And John will be next if he doesn't hurry up and get out of here. As it turns out, Linda didn't leave, but instead she has now made her way up to the church. And the moment she steps out, she is greeted by all of Cane's children, or according to them, her children.
Who takes care of you?
You do. You're my mommy.
While we see that John has made his way back to the hotel room, Linda has made her way up to the doors of the church. Not heeding the warning though, she enters in to begin searching for Cane, who she only finds after he decides to reveal himself behind a door that she had already checked. He's typing, nearly finished with his final work. He proclaims that now is different. Used to, he believed that he was just making all of this up, but now he knows that the power he is being given is and will allow him to make all of it real. This power comes from the ancient ones that have been sealed away for so long and who are now nearly ready to be released onto the world. The door will be opened through Cane's newest book, the one that Linda came here to find. The one he is claiming will be the new Bible, the book that will begin the change, and Linda witnesses everything that has happened so far in this story, in this film, which, just like the latest book, is also titled In the Mouth of Madness. We also know everything that has already happened up until this point, so the questions that we need to be asking is, how far into the future has Cane already written? We know that he hasn't written the ending yet, as he was still just writing a moment ago, but how much does she already know? Has seeing into the future strained her eyes this badly, or are these tears of blood? And when did Cane start growing this monster right out of his back? All of this and being teleported back to the hotel in an instant causes her to not just start losing it, but losing herself. John doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know where she's been. He doesn't know what's going on. The only thing he can do right now is help her inside and lay her on the bed. As she warns him not to read the book, don't even look at it, and then passes out, leaving John clueless of what to do, so he heads downstairs to hopefully get some help. Everything is now wrong. The painting has changed again, no longer having people, but just these creatures. The phone isn't working, and now there's screams of Mr. and Mrs. Pigman coming from the basement, where after some looking, John finds them both. John sprints back upstairs to the lobby, and after a moment of catching his breath, bursts back into the room to check on Linda, but she's moved to the bathroom. And by the growling, extra limbs, and tentacles under the door, it's clear that she isn't alone. Though when she opens the door, there isn't anything in the room with her, because it is now within her. And John is no longer in the room as she throws him through the door. So he doesn't stick around. He rushes for the car and even sees the being that was missing from the greenhouse that they had talked about when they first got there. With only one goal in mind, he throws everything aside, sets his foot on the gas, and tries to get out of this town. He doesn't make it very far though, before running into a roadblock. The whole town is here, dancing and singing around Linda. Completely overwhelmed, John stumbles backward into the bar, where he finds Simon again. And even after everything that has happened, he still believes that all of this is one big setup, calling them professionals with all of the costumes and effects. Simon, though, just ponders one of the most important questions of this story. Which came first? Them or the book? John can't handle it. All of this just makes his head hurt. But he knows that they are not living a Sutter Cane story. He knows that none of this that is going on right now is reality. Simon tells him that reality is no longer what it used to be. But the absolute worst part is that John is now all alone, as he then watches the helpless Simon lift his double barrel and declare that he has to do this. This is how he was written. Outside, John nearly vomits, but there's far too much attention on him now from all of the townsfolk and Linda, who without a word just punches him right in the mouth, and John's not here to play any games, so he returns the favor and then picks her up and throws her in the car so they can leave. But it's as the weapon-wielding townsfolk slowly creep their way towards the car that Linda eats the keys, causing John to have to think on his feet and grab a screwdriver and jam it into the key slot to turn the car over and to take off. Just in time. With so much going on in the struggle to even find the road, Linda begins to lean over to try to get close to John.
Kane's riding me. He wants me to kiss you.
Why?
It may be good for the readers, but it's bad for a driver. John slams on the brakes, swerves to a stop, hops out, screaming at her to stop, but she's no longer there. The only person around is the old man with the bike, who after using a phone booth, rides off into the darkness again. And John follows his lead into the void and right back into the center of town. So he tries again, this time passing Linda and the old man on the bike. Before the void flashes again, he's again right back in the middle of town. Only this time, John doesn't turn around and looks straight into the crowd and floors it. After the crash, John wakes up in the confession booth at the church with Linda now nowhere around, but with a flash of light from the other side, Cane is now here, speaking of how him and his work have now transcended all of this. His creations have now surpassed anything that this world could ever offer. That is why he sold over 1 billion copies, been translated into over 18 languages, and now has more people believing in his work than those that believe in the Bible. John just believes that all of this is his way of bragging and ask what his point is. But it's the point that he just made that tells us so much more about what is going on here than what John could ever hope to understand. For now, though, all John can do is continue to look for an explanation and finally tell Cane to his face that his books suck. Cane just smiles from the other side and says that he should try reading his newest book. The others had quite the effect.
But this one will drive you absolutely mad.
Not only that, but it will also be the thing to prepare the world for the change. It will lead to new believers and ultimately have everyone unable to tell the difference between fantasy and reality. Then will the old ones be able to begin their journey back.
I want to see.
John witnesses just a little bit more than what Linda did earlier. Only when he comes to, he is now lying on the floor of Cane's writing room, where Cane has just now finished the book, which means both Linda and John still don't know how In the Mouth of Madness ends. But regardless, it is still John's job to deliver the book back to the world. John doesn't understand, so Cane lays it all out there for him. He is leaving to be with his new publishers so he can fully transcend all of this. And he knows that John will do his job because that's exactly what he wrote. John is what Cane writes. Just like Hobs End, neither of them existed before Cane began to write. John denies all of this. He knows that he is real and no one pulls his strings. Cane steps closer, asking him if he really believes that his agent attacked him by accident. Of course not. He read about John in the book that John is now holding in his hands. He knew that John would be the catalyst that would start the change, so he tried to stop it before it could get to that point, but that's not how the story goes.
Not a piece of fiction.
I think therefore you are.
I can't. This whole reveal is just so good. I think therefore you are is just such an incredible line. All of this is just so amazing. The whole idea that everything John has done and set up to this point was only because Cane was writing all of it ahead of him. It really makes you think. Regardless of what John believes or not, all he has to do is read the book. Then he will be able to see for himself the ending. John softly tells Cane that he knows what he is, but it's clear that he is saying this more for himself than he is to Cane. The look on Cane's face is one of knowing, because after all, he wrote all of this too, as he then points to the new passage behind them and tells them to go back, as that is the way to the real world and they better hurry because he can't hold them back any longer. Standing before the living gateway to the old one, Sutter Cane then turns to face John and Linda as he then reaches up and tears his face open. A hole is ripped through to the next plane through the now transcendent Cane. And a hole is also torn in John's mind as he walks over to look into the void, and Linda reads this exact moment from the book. The creatures from the Endless begin their journey towards the exit, causing John to do the same, stopping for a moment to request that Linda go back with him, but she can't, because she is already read to the end. Handing off the book to John, he starts running for his life, running for his sanity, and all while running from the end, but also running towards the end. He finally made it back. And even though there is a windmill just off the side of the road and a young Hayden Christensen riding his bike down the road for his paper route, Hobs End is no more. Dropping the cursed book, John leaves it behind and then makes his way to a motel for the night. And after a sleepless, paranoid night, Mr. Trent attempts to quietly buy a newspaper without being noticed, but is stopped by the motel attendant because someone has left a package for him, and after taking it back up to his room, opening it up, he immediately realizes that it is the book. So he rushes back to figure out who delivered it. No one knows, and no one can help, so John does the only thing that he can think of and burns the book one page at a time in the sink. Continuing his journey back home, John finds himself on a bus, and then is found on that same bus by Cane, who tries to get him to understand that he can no longer run. Cane is no longer human. He's ascended to a level of godhood. And just to make his power clear, he tells him that when he wakes up, just to look around. He then leans in and asks John if he ever told him that his favorite color was blue. Right as John then wakes up in a completely blue world, and now everything is Cane's favorite. Maybe those on the bus are right though. Maybe it is all just a bad dream. After all, according to all of the records, no town named Hobs End has ever existed. But back home, back in the alley, behind the posters for the Hobs End horror, tells a different story as he tears one of them away to reveal his own face. The next day, he meets with Mr. Harglow and explains everything that has happened, knowing how it all sounds, but standing firm and also knowing that he is not crazy. But Harglow asked him if he had ever heard the rumor about Cane's writings having a certain effect on some readers. And of course he has. Miss Linda Stiles told him about this after their first meeting. Harglow struggles with this name, but then remembers that that's the lady from John's story. But he knows that he sent John alone, and no lady named Linda Stiles has ever worked there, and even if she did, why would he not remember her? John says that it's simple. She was written out. And for how insane that sounds, Harglow just pushes on, still wondering if maybe the books have infected John in some way. John reiterates that everything that he has said so far has been the truth. That's what he experienced, that was reality, that's what has happened, and that's the reason that he had to burn the last manuscript of the book. But Harglow knows that's not true.
You delivered that manuscript to me months ago.
They published back in July, and the book that Harglow is now holding in his hand has been out for 7 weeks, and even the movie adaptation comes out in less than a month. This was the final straw, knowing it was all too late, seeing his face on the covers at all of the bookstores, hearing the news reports that this psychological epidemic has spread from just these eastern cities to the entire globe. And now all that is left is for John to do what was written, and that's for him to swing an axe into one of Cane's readers outside of a bookstore, which is what landed him in this padded room. And by retelling this story, Cane's story, to Dr. Wren, he is almost certainly ensured that he will never leave. But John does remind Wren that this will continue to spread. John understands why Wren is here, because of how bad everything is getting out there. This is all a lot for the doctor, so he asks John, what about those that don't read? How will Cane's story continue to grow without them?
There's a movie. Oh, yes, of course.
Dr. Wren ends the recording, stands to leave, and assures John that he still does want to help and that he will be back. But John claims that it is now safer in here. Out there, it will continue to get worse, and not long from now, there will be no one left. The human race as a whole will become a bedtime story for the children of those that take over. Wren is met by Saperstein the moment he steps out of the room, as Saperstein then locks the door and asks him what John said. Wren answers simply that John now believes that he is fiction, and that the whole epidemic was caused by Sutter Cane. And it's as Wren turns to leave that Saperstein asks him the famous question, do you read Sutter Cane? At this point, it doesn't make any difference because John is right about all but one thing. It's not any safer in here. The storm ends, the door opens, the place is completely trashed, and John is the only one left alive in the asylum. Well, the only human left alive, that is. And one of very few humans not just left alive in the city, but in the entire world, as he learns through an emergency broadcast that now there's only a few stragglers left. The epidemic that had already become a global problem became worse when the infected began to change and mutate into something different, something ancient. John Trent finds himself at the movie theater, where he also finds himself listed as the star of In the Mouth of Madness on the marquee and of course right on the poster. With nothing left, he grabs a bucket of popcorn, finds a seat, and begins watching himself in the Mouth of Madness. Seeing his story, Cane's story, play out exactly as written, and hearing his words repeated back to him about what is and isn't reality, and not knowing the truth and seeing the truth, seeing the exact events that happened to him on the big screen, as though this is the exact same thing. I too am also saying words that were all written before me. And just like John, when you're able to see this,
This is not reality, not reality, not reality.
I will also be able to watch myself in the end. Fade back to John within the theater, right as he witnesses the completion of Cane's story and his existence. Forever trapped here in this repeating loop that we will force him through each time we choose to rewatch this film or read the long-lost book that has now been put to print after all these years. Only now, Sutter Cane's story has been sealed within my own, here and for as long as this video continues to exist. I understand that this part of me will be left behind as a sort of barrier between the world you know and the world I now exist in. Our worlds are much closer related than either of ours to Cane's. That was made clear by his ramblings about the Bible. Even back in 1994, nearly 5 billion Bibles had already been sold and fully translated into over 340 languages. In Cane's story and in his world, the numbers were different, along with many other minor contrasts between our worlds. But odd things still stand, from his books that you can't read listed all across the internet, to the now empty Cathedral of the Transfiguration in Ontario, or as we all know it now, the Black Church, to finally the existence of this film and now the book. But evil has a way of waiting for the perfect moment to make its move, which is why I will do everything I can to hold it back, so that you might have the chance to have an extra blessed day.